The dying fleet, the coalition fleet, hung in space like broken birds, their once proud vessels scarred and bleeding atmosphere into the void. 300 ships had started this campaign. Now barely 40 remained operational, and those were running on fumes and prayers. Supreme Marshal Korvax stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dawn, his 4 arms clasped behind his crystalline body. The Zafrani commander had seen many battles in his 3 centuries of life, but nothing like this systematic destruction. The Dominion forces didn't just defeat their enemies, they dismantled them piece by piece, following the same brutal efficiency that had conquered half the galaxy. Marshal, long-range sensors detect incoming vessels, his tactical officer announced, mandibles clicking nervously. Unknown configuration. They're broadcasting coalition friend codes, but the design matches nothing in our database. Korvax turned, his faceted eyes catching the bridge lights. Show me. The main display flickered to life, revealing a sight that made every being on the bridge stop and stare. 23 vessels approached, but calling them ships seemed almost generous. They looked like someone had welded cargo containers to engine blocks, strapped weapons wherever they'd fit, and painted the whole mess in garish colors. One ship actually had what appeared to be advertising logos still visible on its hull. What in the 7 hells? Korvax muttered. A communication request blinked on the console. When accepted, a human face appeared on screen. Dark skin, graying hair at the temples, and eyes that held both exhaustion and determination. Supreme Marshal Korvax, I'm Admiral Maria Chen of the Earth Defense Initiative. I understand you could use some assistance. Korvax's translator struggled with the casual tone. Admiral Chen, while we appreciate any aid, I must inform you that 23 vessels, especially ones of questionable construction, will not turn the tide against the Dominion Armada. Chen smiled, and several bridge officers later swore they saw her actually wink. Marshal, with respect, you've been fighting this war like it's a formal duel. We're about to show these Dominion bastards what a bar fight looks like. Before Korvax could respond, proximity alarms screamed across the bridge. The Dominion's advance fleet, 50 ships strong, dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Their obsidian hulls gleamed with menace, weapons charging in synchronized harmony. All coalition vessels retreat to defensive position Alpha, Korvax ordered, his voice heavy with resignation. They'd run this dance before. The Dominion would advance in their unstoppable formation. The coalition would resist and more ships would die. Negative on that retreat, Marshal. Chen's voice cut through the chaos. All Earth vessels, execute Operation Hornet's Nest. Remember, folks, chaos is our friend. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human ships scattered like seeds in a hurricane, each moving in completely different patterns. Some accelerated toward the Dominion fleet, others flew perpendicular, and 3 actually appeared to be flying backward while spinning. The Dominion formation, programmed for millennia of standardized warfare, hesitated. That hesitation cost them. The human vessel Crazy Ivan, a converted mining ship, fired not weapons but mining charges, thousands of them, creating a cloud of micro-explosives between the fleets. The yacht-turned-gunship Second Chance used racing engines to streak through the Dominion formation at speeds that should have torn it apart, dropping proximity mines as it went. The cargo hauler Big Betty did something that made Korvax's tactical officer faint. It ramming speeded directly into a Dominion cruiser, its reinforced cargo bay filled with nuclear warheads. They're insane, whispered the Coalition navigation officer. They're magnificent, Korvax corrected, watching as the perfect Dominion formation dissolved into chaos. For the first time in the war, the Dominion ships were breaking formation, trying to respond to threats that came from every direction at once. Admiral Chen's face appeared on a side screen. Marshal, I suggest your ships target their command vessel while they're distracted. We'll keep them busy. The battle raged for 6 hours. The humans lost 7 ships, each loss taking a piece of Chen's composure with it. But when the dust settled, 30 Dominion vessels were destroyed or disabled, and the rest were retreating, their perfect doctrine shattered against human unpredictability. In the aftermath, as rescue operations began, Korvax found himself in a secure communication with Admiral Chen. Your tactics are unorthodox. Chen laughed, though it didn't reach her eyes. Marshal, humanity has been fighting itself for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at fighting dirty when we're outmatched. Your coalition has the numbers and the technology. What you need is someone willing to throw out the rulebook. The Dominion will adapt, Korvax warned. They always do. Then we'll adapt faster, Chen replied. Look, Marshal, your people have been fighting this war like it's a chess match. The Dominion knows every move you'll make because you've been making the same moves for centuries. But humans, we don't just play chess. We play poker, checkers, and sometimes we just flip the board. Over the next days, as human and coalition forces regrouped, something unprecedented happened. Coalition officers began visiting human ships not for formal exchanges, but to learn. They watched humans duct tape weapons to hulls, saw them repurpose civilian technology for military use, observed as they turned disadvantages into advantages. Lieutenant Sarah Park, chief engineer of the Patchwork Dream, found herself explaining to a group of fascinated Zafrani engineers how they'd converted a sewage processing system into a weapon. See, the Dominion shields are designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic rounds. But nobody expects weaponized waste traveling at high velocity. It doesn't damage them, but it blinds sensors and is absolutely devastating to morale. The Alteran representative, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical shell, observed humans playing cards during a battle alert. You gamble during life-threatening situations? Helps with the nerves, Sergeant Tom Rodriguez explained, dealing another hand. Plus, poker teaches you to read opponents' bluff and know when to fold. Pretty useful in a fight. As the Coalition absorbed these lessons, strange things began happening. A Vorthan destroyer started playing human music during battle, using the acoustic vibrations to interfere with Dominion targeting systems. Korvax himself authorized the painting of his ship in chaotic, clashing colors after learning about human dazzle camouflage. The real change came when humanity shared something the Coalition had never considered: the power of psychological warfare. Captain James Murphy, a former advertising executive turned military strategist, presented his idea to the War Council. The Dominion believes in absolute order, right? They think chaos is weakness, so let's use that against them. He pulled up a display. We flood their communication channels with nonsense. Music, advertisements, cooking shows, whatever we can transmit. We make their ordered universe incomprehensible. That's not warfare, protested a Coalition admiral. That's madness. Exactly, Murphy grinned. And they won't know how to fight madness. The first test came at the Kello station. As Dominion forces approached what they expected to be another orderly battle, their communications were suddenly filled with 1,000 different Earth broadcasts. Classical music overlapped with death metal, cooking shows mixed with comedy routines, and through it all, a repeating message in perfect Dominion standard. Your certainty is your weakness. The Dominion fleet, trained for clarity and precision, found their coordination shattered. Orders couldn't get through the noise, and for the first time in their history, Dominion ships fired on each other in confusion. But humanity's greatest contribution wasn't tactics or technology. It was hope. After months of defeats, the Coalition had been ready to surrender. Now they saw possibility where they'd seen only doom. The humans hadn't won through superior firepower or advanced technology. They'd won by being unwilling to accept defeat, by finding solutions in impossibility, by being gloriously, chaotically human. As Admiral Chen stood with Marshal Korvax, watching their combined fleet prepare for the next engagement, she shared something that would echo through Coalition history. You know what humanity's greatest strength is, Marshal? We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. We'll fight with sticks against plasma cannons if we have to, and sometimes, just sometimes, the stick wins. The war was far from over, but for the first time the Coalition believed they could win, not through superior might or ancient wisdom, but through humanity's gift to the galaxy, the power of creative chaos. The Phoenix Protocol 3 months after humanity's arrival had changed the war's trajectory. The combined Coalition Earth fleet faced their greatest challenge yet. The Dominion had assembled their Grand Armada, over 500 vessels strong at the Nexus Point, a strategic location that controlled access to 7 major systems. If they held it, the war was over. Admiral Chen stood in the war room of the newly christened command ship Unity, a hybrid vessel combining Coalition technology with human modifications. Around her, representatives from 12 species planned what many believed would be their last stand. Their formation is perfect, observed Subcommander Thrix, his insectoid eyes analyzing the tactical display. 3 defensive spheres with overlapping fields of fire. Our chaos tactics won't work against such disciplined positioning. Chen studied the display, then did something that still made her alien allies nervous. She laughed. You're right. We can't beat that formation. So we won't fight it. Marshal Korvax leaned forward. Admiral, we cannot simply ignore 500 warships. Not ignore, Chen corrected. We're going to make them irrelevant. Tell me, what's the one thing the Dominion values above all else? Order, several voices answered simultaneously. Exactly. And what happens to perfect order when you remove its foundation? Chen pulled up a different display showing not the battle space but the Dominion supply lines, communication relays, and command structure. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings, I present Operation Phoenix. We're not going to fight their fleet. We're going to make it impossible for their fleet to fight. The plan was audacious beyond measure. While a small force engaged the Grand Armada in traditional combat, keeping them focused and in formation, specialized teams would strike at everything that made the Dominion war machine function. It wasn't about winning battles. It was about making war impossible. Captain Lisa Wong commanded the first strike team. Her ship Wildcard, accompanied by 3 coalition vessels that had been modified with human stealth technology, which essentially meant they were covered in radar-absorbing materials and running as cold as space itself. Their target, the Dominion's quantum communication network. Remember, Wong told her mixed human-alien crew, we're not trying to destroy it. We're trying to make it unreliable. An enemy that can't trust their own communications is already defeated. They infiltrated the network through a maintenance node, and instead of destroying it, they introduced something far more insidious: doubt. The virus created by human hackers working with alternate energy beings would randomly alter small parts of messages, not enough to be obvious, just enough to create confusion. Orders to advance might become orders to hold. Requests for supplies might be rerouted to wrong coordinates. Meanwhile, Commander Jake Harrison led what he called the grocery run, targeting Dominion supply depots. But instead of destroying supplies, his team contaminated them with nanobots that would cause equipment to fail at random intervals, weapons that would fire normally for days, then suddenly shut down, engines that would work perfectly until pushed to combat speeds. It's not about breaking their toys, Harrison explained to his bewildered Vorthan tactical officer. It's about making them not trust their toys. The Psychological Warfare Division, led by the irrepressible Captain Murphy, had perhaps the strangest mission of all. They discovered that the Dominion, in their quest for perfect order, had no concept of entertainment. Every broadcast was information. Every communication was purposeful. So Murphy's team began broadcasting something the Dominion had never encountered: fiction. Stories of Dominion defeats that hadn't happened, victories that were lies, entire battles that existed only in human imagination. The Dominion command structure, unable to comprehend why anyone would broadcast false information, treated each story as intelligence, spending precious resources investigating phantoms. But the masterpiece of human cunning came from an unexpected source. Ensign Patricia Kim, fresh from Earth's Academy, noticed something others had missed. The Dominion's perfect formations required perfect timing, and that timing relied on synchronized chronometers across their entire fleet. What if, she proposed to Admiral Chen, we made time itself unreliable? The operation required precise coordination between human hackers and coalition scientists. Using a combination of localized gravitational distortions and cyber warfare, they introduced tiny variations in the Dominion chronometers. Not enough to be noticed immediately, but enough that over time, their perfect synchronization would drift. As these operations unfolded, the main fleet engaged the Grand Armada in what appeared to be a conventional battle. The Dominion commanders, secure in their numerical superiority, didn't notice the small inconsistencies creeping into their operations. A supply ship arriving late here, a communication garbled there, a formation slightly out of alignment. The breaking point came when High Admiral Vex of the Dominion, frustrated by the accumulating irregularities, ordered a full fleet synchronization reset. It was exactly what Chen had been waiting for. The moment every Dominion ship dropped their shields to reset their systems, the Coalition Earth fleet struck with everything they had. But even that wasn't the killing blow. The real victory came from within the Dominion ranks themselves. Doubt that most human of emotions had infected their perfect order. Ships second-guessed orders, commanders questioned intelligence, and for the first time in their history, the Dominion experienced fear. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Grand Armada wasn't destroyed. It simply ceased to function as a cohesive force. Ships fled in different directions. Some surrendered. Others turned on each other, suspecting betrayal. The perfect order had become perfect chaos. In the aftermath, as the coalition celebrated their impossible victory, a Dominion commander requested parley. Commander Zelix, his usually perfect uniform disheveled, met with Admiral Chen and Marshal Korvax. "How?" was all he asked. Chen poured 3 glasses of whiskey, a human tradition she'd introduced to diplomatic meetings. "You want to know how we beat you? We didn't. You beat yourselves. Your perfection was your weakness. You never learned to adapt because you never had to. You never learned to doubt because you were always certain. We were superior," Zelix insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "In technology? Yes. In numbers? Absolutely. But superiority isn't just about strength. It's about flexibility, creativity, and the willingness to do the unexpected. Humanity learned that lesson fighting ourselves. Every war we fought, we had to get cleverer, more unpredictable, more willing to break our own rules." Marshal Korvax added, "The humans taught us something vital, Commander. They taught us that chaos isn't weakness, it's possibility. In perfect order, there's only one path. In chaos, there are infinite paths. The war didn't end that day, but its conclusion was inevitable. The Dominion, their confidence shattered, began making mistakes. Some systems surrendered, others attempted to negotiate. The perfect empire crumbled not under superior firepower, but under the weight of its own inflexibility. 6 months later, at the signing of the Treaty of Variance, Admiral Chen stood before the assembled representatives of the known galaxy. Humanity, barely spacefaring for a century, had earned a place among the great powers not through conquest, but through contribution. "Humanity offers the galaxy our greatest gift," Chen announced. "Not our technology, not our ships, but our perspective. We've learned that strength comes not from perfection, but from adaptation, not from order, but from controlled chaos, not from certainty, but from the courage to face uncertainty." The Alteran representative, speaking for many, asked, "What will humanity do now?" Chen smiled. "The same thing we've always done. We'll explore, we'll learn, we'll make mistakes, and we'll grow. And if anyone threatens the peace we've all fought for, well..." She paused, her smile becoming a grin. "We'll remind them why humanity's contribution to this war wasn't our weapons or our ships. It was our refusal to accept the impossible." As the ceremony concluded and species mingled who had never stood together in peace, one truth echoed through every conversation. The galaxy had been forever changed not by humanity's strength, but by their beautiful, chaotic, unbreakable spirit. The war was won not by the greatest fleet or the most advanced technology, but by a species too stubborn to know when they were beaten and too creative to fight fair. The galaxy would never be the same, and everyone agreed that was exactly what it needed.